Good morning. It's good to be with you on this Tuesday morning. We're glad to continue studying together in our Gospel of John. Today we're going to be reading from John chapter 5, verses 1 through 18. It's a great story you've heard many times. So sometimes in the Gospels, well, not all the Bible, but in some of the Gospels, you read the story, you're like, oh man, golly, there's so many different places we could go with this because it's so good. There's so many good things here. We could spend weeks on this one passage. So let's read chapter 5, verses 1 through 18. After this, there was a festival of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now, in Jerusalem by the sheep gate, there's a pool in Hebrew, Bethesda, which has five porticos. In these lay many invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man who was there had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there, he knew that he had been there a long time, and he said to him, do you want to be made well? The sick man answered him, sir, I have no one to put me up into the pool when the water stirred up. While I'm making my way, someone else steps down ahead of me. Jesus said to him, stand up and take your mat and walk. And at once the man was made well, and he took up his mat and began to walk. Now this day was the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been cured, it is not lawful for you to carry your mat. But he answered him, the man who made me well said to me, take up your mat and walk. They asked him, who is the man who said to you, take up your mat, take it up and walk? Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had disappeared into the crowd that was there. Later, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, see, you have been made well. Do not sin anymore, that nothing worse happens to you. The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Therefore the Jews started persecuting Jesus because he was doing things such as this on the Sabbath. Jesus answered them, my Father is still working, but I am also working. For this reason, the Jews are seeking more to kill him, because he was not only breaking the Sabbath, but he was calling God his own Father, thereby making himself equal to God. Okay, a lot of stuff here. I want to talk about the Sabbath stuff just a minute. You've also heard you probably heard a sermon preached on this, how the man had been there for 38 years and he never got to the pool, and we should always be willing to help each other out, take people to the pool, take people to Jesus. You've probably heard that sermon. I think there's definitely something there, but I really want to focus on the Sabbath part of this. So let's unpack what's happening here. Um, Jesus is getting persecuted by the religious leaders. Remember, in John's gospel, anytime you hear the phrase "the Jews," remember the Jews is short for the religious leaders. Don't hear this as talking about all Jewish people, because remember, Jesus was Jewish. So just always want to remind that anytime in John's gospel you hear the phrase "the Jews," always remember that shorthand for the religious leaders. So Jesus heals this man, tells him, pick up your mat, take it, and walk. And he does that. And so the religious leaders see him walking and say, whoa, 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 hold on. You can't be toting that around. What's wrong with you? And they said, who healed you? He's like, I don't know, some guy healed me. So Jesus finds him and he tells him it's Jesus. So now the religious leaders are mad at Jesus because he's working on the Sabbath, and he is calling God his own Father, thereby making himself equal with God. Let's unpack both of these. Um, so the Sabbath thing. I've shared this with you before, but just going back in your history, remember the Pharisees arose, the religious leaders, during the exile period, after the Jews were punished for breaking the covenant. In all the Old Testament, the rules were keep the covenant, you get the land, life is great. Keep the covenant, you get the land, life's great. That's the way it played out. The Jewish people did not keep the covenant. They broke the law, they were punished, and they lost the land because they broke the law. So during this exile period in Babylon, the Pharisees arose as interpreters or teachers of the law, and they said, if we ever get back home, we're not going to break the law. Well, the law was kind of vague. Honor the Sabbath. What does that mean? What does it mean to honor the Sabbath? So the Pharisees became the teachers or the interpreters of the law, and they basically fleshed out what the law was said. So you want to honor the Sabbath? You want to keep it holy? Well, here's how you do it. You don't work. You avoid working. And so carrying one of the ways that they went down to all these definitions, but carrying an unnatural weight, so many steps, was considered working. So this man who was healed was carrying his mat. You were not allowed to carry something like your mat so many steps on the Sabbath, or else you would have been working. So the point the religious leaders were trying to do was trying to help people honor God by keeping the Sabbath. They were trying to give a specific and tangible, if you will, instruction on what honoring the Sabbath looked like. It meant not working, and not working meant this right here. That's what's happening. They are trying to define how to keep the law. So when Jesus breaks the law, he isn't breaking the 10 Commandments, but he's breaking these Pharisaical laws, these man-made laws. And y'all, I get it. I get where the Pharisees are coming from. Just give me a to-do list. Just give me a to-do list. Give me a list of the specific things that I am to do, and I'll be fine. Tell me what to do. That's what they wanted. God doesn't want us to have a to-do list of what to do. He wants all of us. He wants us to love him with every fiber of our being, and to love our neighbor with every fiber of our being. Our faith is not a checklist. Following Jesus, y'all, it's not a checklist. It's not do these 5 easy steps, take these 5 easy whatever, and you'll be right. No, y'all, he wants so much more than just the checklist. He wants so much more than just 5 easy steps. He wants so much more than just these things here. He wants all of you. He wants every last ounce of who you are. That's what he desires, is all of you. And so, that's more than just a checklist. Well, their hearts were in the right place, but they were more focused and more in love with their invented human stuff than they were the law of God. And that's legalism at its core, y'all. That's legalism at its core. And legalism is appealing, and legalism is easy. Faith is scary. Faith is scary because I talked in my sermon Sunday about how easy it is to look past the homeless person. And it's giving $10 to the homeless person's easy. Giving $10 to Gateway Mission is easy. Learning to see that homeless person as someone made in the image of God, stopping from looking past and looking through them is hard. That's when we actually grow to love God, is when we stop and love our neighbor, is when we stop looking through people and we start seeing them for who they are, as image bearers, those made in the image of God. Learning to see people as made in the image of God is a lot harder than just being nice. Because if they're made in the image of God, it means we got to love them, whether they share our politics or not, whether they share our theology or not, whether they share our denomination or not. We got to love them. We don't have a choice. We have to. That's so much deeper than just the to-do list. Not committing murder, typically most days, is easy. Not committing murder is easy. But keeping hatred, keeping anger, keeping these things out of your heart, not giving the devil a foothold, y'all, that's hard, isn't it? So the to-do list is easy. Jesus calls it something more than a to-do list. He calls us to do something more than a to-do list. He calls us to love God and love our neighbor with all that we are. All of us. Every last ounce of who we are. He calls us to love God and love our neighbor with that. So that's his to-do list. And his to-do list is hard. Just to do this is hard. And we can only do it through him. So, you know, that's what's happening here. And I just think that's an interesting verse to think about. So love God today with all you are. Love your neighbor with all you are. If we do that, then we've done the point. So, all right. Well, we'll pick up tomorrow with verse 19. Have a great day.